Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we'd have a look at the premium vehicles that are on offer in the Warbond shop in War Thunder for the month of June. Now, if you don't know what the Warbond shop is, we can quickly have a look at it in War Thunder. It's basically the area of the game, which you can find here, where you can get yourselves, well, prizes, I suppose, by just doing daily tasks and special tasks. Daily tasks you find here, you get 2 a day, they refresh every day. You can also change them for silver lions if you want, and you also need to build yourself some special tasks. If you do both of these things, you can eventually get a bunch of either decals or boosters or branches or, you know, decorations, but most people like the idea of getting these things right here, the premium vehicles at the top. So understand that just by playing the game in War Thunder every month, you know, on a decently you know, amount of time, all you have to do is, you know, grind through the dailies and you can get yourself some free premiums and some interesting decals and whatever you really want. It's a wonderful system that gives back to the individual for, well, just playing. As long as you are, once again, completing the dailies and doing the specials. And as you can see for me, I've used it as basically a way of getting all of the different profile icons, because I really enjoy collecting them. So yeah, it's just been one of those things that I do. But that's the Warbond shop system. I've gone through it in a video before. Just type in Warbonds on my channel and I go through the system and how it fully works. This month, they are offering some interesting vehicles. I'm going to go through each of them and, you know, what I think of them. And the first one is the Avenger Mark II for the British. Then we have the T-34-747R for the Germans, the IAR-81C, the F4U-1A Japan, the T-14, and the Zut-37. Now, understand I'm going to be talking about these vehicles from an air-realistic and a ground-realistic point of view. And one thing that would be nice eventually, and I know, like, naval, especially compared to, like, air and ground, is in its infancy. It would be nice if, for one time, you know, in the Warbond shop, we have maybe a continual naval vehicle, so one which, you know, appears all the time, instead of, you know, 3 ground and 3 air, which is what we see here. Maybe change one of these to naval, or a ship, or a boat, so we can just, you know, the naval players can be represented in this zone. Also, you have the trophy vehicles, the LVT A4ZIS-2, HE-51B2H, the T-26E A13 Mark II at 1939, and CR-32 BIS. Understand that these come in either coupon form, or you can sell the box on the marketplace. So you can grind out this box, sell it on the Gaijin market, and then you are able, as a PC player, to be able to get some Gaijin coins, which you can use to spend on other stuff, or you can open the box for free once you have it, and get one of these coupons here, and either keep it by obviously redeeming the coupon, or selling it once again on the Gaijin market. So I've got all of these vehicles, so if I went for this box, what would happen is I would just, I would have to sell the vehicle, whatever I got. So this is a really good way of getting your hands on some rare vehicles, which were for events in the past, such as the LVT A4ZIS-2 and the HE-51B2. All of these vehicles, or at least the majority of them, have been available in the past, and if you're a new player to the game and haven't, you know, played for as many years as I have, then this gives you an opportunity to unlock vehicles like this, which are incredibly different to the average. The HE-51B2 holds the record, I believe, for the smallest bombs in game. This has access to 10 kilo bombs, these little darlings here. So yeah, it's just, it's nice to have that piece of history of War Thunder, and you can get it too through it. But I'm not going to go through those vehicles. If you want a quick overview, because I have gone through them over in the past, if you want something that's functional and useful, LVT-A4 and CR-32 BIS. If you want something that's rare and a lot of people want, Hydroplane. And if you're solely doing it for the money aspect, make sure to check the Gaijin market, work out if it's worth you selling the trophy box itself or taking a risk and getting one of these coupons. So yeah, I I would hope to get the LVT or the CR32 BIS just from an efficiency point of view, but definitely for a unique point of view, the hydroplane would be wonderful. So let's talk about these vehicles that are on offer at the top echelon of the Warbond shop. The first one is the F4U1A. Now, the F4U1A you can actually find in the American tree. You can find it at rank 2. It is right here. And you have one at 2.7, one at 3.3. You know, you have the USMC one and the, well, normal one, I suppose, when it comes to the game. The one that's on offer, though, is the F4U1A Corsair for the Japanese. And this is a copy of the first F4U1A that you get in the American tree. It's pretty much just a reskinned version. It acts exactly the same, and it's just one of those premium captured vehicles that was added to the game incredibly early on. Now, what are my opinions on this? The F4U1A is a solid machine. 2.7. One of the issues that the American teams have is that you have machines like the P39s, the P400s, P40s, F4Fs. All of these machines are very much mid-altitude fighters, and the F4U1A needs to get to higher altitudes to be more effective. So you can be kind of left out of the wayside when it comes to the American teams. But the premium version of the F4U1A for the Japanese, what happens is you have a bunch of aircraft for the Japanese which are great around 2.7. N1K1, A6M2, start of the, you know, the normal zeros, I suppose you'd call them, the Key 44s, which are absolute monsters. Like, if you've never used these things, go and play them. They are monsters in the game. Then you've got the early Key 61s, which are amazing. These are decent high-altitude machines. These are very good machines at any altitude. Even the J2M2 at 3.7, if you get up to it, is a monster. And what happens is, because you normally face American teams or Soviet teams, all of these aircraft attack the American and Soviet planes at mid to high altitude. They drag them down, and that means that you, in the Corsair, can clean up. Now, understand that this is very much a high-speed fighter. You don't want to be engaging enemies at low speeds. You want to be engaging them at high speeds in a boom and zoom fashion, meaning that you hit the enemy hard and then you fly away as fast as you can, making sure that they cannot get a primary shot on you, and then setting up for the kill again. When you have Japanese planes on your team, which have incredibly good or small turn circles, let's say, and also are able to bleed a lot of the Soviets and the American planes of energy really easily, this means that it's proper job mop-up time for the F4U1A. This is a really fun aircraft to use. It is not the easiest to use. Obviously, as I said, it does need the specific playstyle that I talked about. Go to high altitude, make sure that you're reading the game well, because once you make that initial hit, you've got to make sure that there's nobody above you. You've got to make sure that you are at the advantage when it comes to altitude. Kind of like the early P47s, really. If you trigger too quick and, you know, you follow your team down to help them, and then you realize that there's like 2 BF-109s above you, you're going to have such a bad time. It's the same thing with this thing. So it's all about timing on that initial hit, and once you get that down, you can mop up teams very easily because of the fact it has a ton of ammo, because of the fact that it has really nice flight characteristics at speed, and also because of the fact that you can just get away from the majority of enemies that you fight. So this is a really nice pickup. I personally love the plane. But I will say, for the individual, it may have a few issues when it comes to playstyle. You definitely have to get used to it. It's not your typical rank 2 fighter. The next aircraft, well, let's actually just go in order. So the next one is the T-34-747R. And I should actually mention, if you already have these vehicles, you can't get them again. So you can't get coupons of these vehicles and sell them on the marketplace. You can only get the ones that you don't have. So the T-34-747R, which is a horrific name, is once again another captured premium. It is a German T-34 at 4.0. It has access to the F-34 cannon, and you can see it's very similar to the T-34 1942 that is in the Soviet tree, which sits itself at 3.7. I suppose it's kind of a conglomeration of the 1942 and the STZ, and what you find on it is a pretty capable machine at 4.0, but unfortunately at 4.0 there isn't really a lineup you can build around this. If you go to Tank Realistic, which is of course the mode we're talking about, at 4.0 you've got the Stug 3G and you've got the Panzer 4G. Now this is a pretty good lineup, right? You've also got the 88mm, but the problem with it is at 4.0 you get up-tiered quite a lot into 4.3, and the Soviets have a ridiculous lineup of 4.3. The T-34-57, KV-1s IS-5, Su-57. The British also around this tier. The Churchills start getting, online. The 4.7 one is fun. Then you got the Sherman Firefly and all of these wonderful things. The Americans also start getting stuff such as the Shermans with the stabilizers, with the 75s, incredibly powerful vehicles. So at 4.0, it's a little bit annoying, but it isn't the end of the world. You can replace your Panzer 4G with this in the lineup. You are pretty much sacrificing a little bit of firepower in the gun with more mobility, so if that fits your playstyle better, then of course, it's going to be okay. I personally really like the 3.3 lineup for the Germans, just because of the fact that it has the Panzer IV F2, and whatever you build around that at, 3.3 is going to be great. It only has access to a winter and a standard camo, which is going to act more like a desert camo, so you don't have a forest camo, so you can't hide as effectively as other vehicles. Your armor is pretty much nada. Obviously it has the 75mm driver's hatch, so that'll bounce some, but the majority of people nowadays know where to shoot this. Has some extra armor on the front as well though, 15mm. That can catch people out, but normally it's not going to. The main place to shoot this thing, if you don't know where to shoot it, right here. What this will do is it'll kill the whole turret, and it'll kill the gunner, and sometimes bounce down, kill the whole tank, and if it doesn't do that, whatever happens, this thing's turret's kaput. So just shoot it here. It's 54mm, it's not hard to get through. But as a machine, as part of a lineup, as I said, I prefer the 3.3 one, which is at the same rank, well, actually, yeah, it's at the same rank, sorry, because this is only a rank 2, which kind of sucks. Since it's a rank 2, it's good at researching rank 3 and below. It would be nice if it was a rank higher, just because of its BR. I mean, we have the Panzerbefehlswagen 4 at 4.0, and the KV-1B at 4.0, so it's kind of odd that this is a rank 2, but it's a good vehicle, if you want to get in and amongst the enemy and also troll people in simulator battles. But also, there's just better lineups and also a decent, machine in the tree. If you have, if it's between this, or this, get the Churchill or the KV-1B. If you want something that's premium, that's a bit of fun, and you have everything else, yeah, sure, go for the T-34, but to be honest, I think it's one of the weakest, even though it's not a weak vehicle, it's just not that appetizing. And then you got the T-14, the Big Bertha Sherman, so this is just a fat Sherman, and if you like the Sherman, you like the T-14. It has access to the 75mm M3 cannon at 4.3. This is one of those machines which is up-tiered from its brethren. You can see that it's sat at rank 2, with the 75mm M3 cannon, and everything else that has the M3 cannon when it comes to a Sherman is 3.7. So this definitely sucks, right? Because you are going up, 2 technical BR brackets, basically because you have some armor, and to me, the armor is not that useful. It does mean that you can effectively side scrape this vehicle, which does, work really well, and also you have that factor where, because you don't see too many of these in a battle, a lot of people aren't really gonna know where to shoot it, which is kind of a large factor for a lot of vehicles. Like, I commented the AC4, when I play it, I feel people struggle to know where to shoot the thing, so you end up bouncing a lot of shots that on other vehicles you just wouldn't, and that's because of the rarity of the vehicle. The T-14 would be the same. It's got a decently sloped upper glacis, also the turret is pretty well sloped, but anything with a long barrel 75 or a 76 from the Soviets, which is the majority of stuff you're going to fight, it's going to pen you pretty easy. Even stuff like the 75s from the Japanese should pen you easy, as long as they know where to shoot, which is pretty much everywhere, which isn't here. and also the gun mantler, because the gun mantler will eat shells all day. So it does have a stabilizer, which is nice for it. The reload rate is really good on it. Gun depression is really good on it. It's just a fat Sherman. So if you like the Sherman and you're okay with up BRing yourself in a Sherman, then this is the thing to go for. If you want to play more defensive, also this is something to go for. And it has, once again, the issue of you can't build a lineup around it. There's no other vehicle in the tree which is a 4.3 actually. You've got some 4.7s, and since this is already being up-tiered by two parts, you don't want to up-tier it again. So adding it in your lineup, it's going to be the toppest tierest vehicle that you have. And just to put this in perspective, the meta vehicle for the Germans at 4.3 is probably the Panzer 4G. I suppose the Dicker could definitely be thrown in there. The Soviets get the KV-1 ZIS-5 of 4.3, so good luck with that. The British, they get the Firefly, of course. Then the Japanese, they get the Cheeto and the Cheeto Late. The Italians, they get the M4, once again, the Tipo. And the 4.7 and 4.3 monster, the M4A4 SA50. So if we compare it to the meta vehicles around the BR of the T14, it isn't good, right? It isn't on their level, and the fact that you can't build a lineup around it kind of sucks. So overall, it would be a pass from me, just because it's just a fat machine, really. I have seen people do well in it, and I've personally done well in it on test drives and stuff, but I don't take too much from that. It's just a vehicle which is it's good at a few things, as I said, with being able to bounce stuff with the armor, people not being used to it, but the 75 lets it down. The Avenger Mark II is, of course, a vehicle that is sat in the British tree as a premium. This, I believe, is a copy-paste of an American vehicle that we have in the game. Is it the SBD3? I think it might be this machine, the TBF-1C. Is it the Devastator, as it's known as? No, the Avenger. So yeah, it makes sense. So it's a copy of the TBF-1C, or at least a very close copy to the TBF-1C. There might be slight differences. The fact is it's at 3.0, and at 3.0, it's a pretty competent vehicle. It has two 12.7mm machine guns, which are mounted in the wings. It has also access to two gunners, a 12.7 in the back, which can be incredibly deadly at this BR because people don't have massive vitality on their pilot skills, so you can snipe them quite easily. Then, of course, the 7.62 in the bottom. You've got a decently sized engine, and crew survivability is okay in the machine because of the amount of armor that you see here. So against vehicles that don't have a lot of penetration, then you're gonna do okay. I like this type of vehicles in aerialistic because the way I see them is I can shut off my brain and I can just go into an aerialistic battle and just kill a few ground targets and not have to pay too much of a repair cost, and have, as you can see, the reward 720% on that SL, which is crazy high for a rank 2 vehicle, right? This is 540, 570, 330. Boomerangs are at 720 and 570 respectively. Hudson's sat at 420 and the Corsair's at 540. So this is the joint highest SL earner at rank 2. So if you're struggling for SL or you want to grind out, your British tree, the Avenger is the way to do it while having a mushed brain. You pretty much just focus on light targets on the ground, and before you do that, you obviously use your bombs. You get access to 2 torpedoes. One of them is awful. Always use this one. It has a max drop speed, which you'll never reach in this thing, or you should never reach, and a drop altitude of 0 to 250. This is just a better bomb, right, than this. So just always take this if you're using a torpedo. Ships in aerialistic can give you a ton of RP and SL for killing them, so don't forget about the torpedo. Very important. 4.500s means that you can kill a base, and that is very useful for the Avenger. Also, ground target belts mean that you can kill pillboxes with this thing. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it. And then or at least light pillboxes. The turret, obviously good for defending, and the 7.62 doesn't really matter. The only issue with the Avenger is that it's cumbersome. It's a fatty. which means that it does lumber through the air and it's easy to spot as well, which is why I don't really like taking it into ground realistic, because of the fact that I can run it, you know, with a decent 3.0 lineup. The 3-inch gun carrier gets a bad rap, and there's a good reason for it. It's awful. The Churchill Mark.I is really fun though, really good vehicle, as long as you use it correctly, which is of course spam smoke everywhere with the 76 and go around popping people with that 40 and hope nobody shoots your turret. AC Mark.II is a great AA and also tank destroyer. AEC is fun, and the Valentine Mark.IX is fun. So you can build a lineup around it, you know, if you want to. And also, with naval out as well, the 3.0 lineup for the fleet is not as good, since there's only one machine that is at 3.0, but the SGB is a great machine to try and work around. It's got a 76, it's got two 40s on it, it's got 2 Orlikans, it's got dual sets of Vickers and torpedoes. This is one of my favorite boats in the British tree, because it has a little bit of everything. And for me, because it also has the 40mm on the front, you can get them both firing at the same target at once, putting out a lot of damage, plus you can put torpedoes and lock stuff off, and then obviously have backup from the other guns. So if you want to build a lineup around the SGB, throw in the Fairmile and the Dark Class, because this is it this one? Or, yeah, I think this one might be garbage. One of these is awful. I can't remember which one, but whichever one isn't awful, I believe this one is the awful one, just because of how everything is set up. Yeah, it's got the not so good 40 on the back and the decent 40 on the front, but it's nothing special. This has the 57, which is incredibly fun to use on the front, can snipe people out from a very long way, and of course torpedoes. So yeah, if you're going to build a lineup around the SGB, go that, this, and the Dark Class, and then throw in the Avenger because of the great torpedo on it, and then throw in whatever else you want along with it. So the Avenger is good for aerialistic, for grinding. It's also good in naval. And in ground realistic, I prefer other options. I prefer taking my Typhoons, I prefer taking my Spitfires, just because I like to play the air superiority game, and also I like the fact of bringing bombs on my Typhoons. I keep hitting the workshop button. The next machine on the agenda is the IAR-81C. Now the IAR-81C is a Romanian plane which you'll find in the Italian tech tree. Now, if you haven't ground out the Italian tech tree, first of all, it's an incredible grind. It's really easy to do, really fun. Make sure to do it if you haven't. It's one of the easiest grinds. I would say the Italian air tech tree, not the ground tech tree, but the air tech tree is really fun. You've got such good planes, and they're always adding more Reggianis to the air tree, or the REs, as they're known. All of these vehicles, or this whole line here, is a joy to fly. Great balance between altitude fighting, also turning and energy fighting, and guns to back it up. So you don't really need a premium to be able to research through them, but if you want something to go along with it, the IAR-81C is pretty good. It would be nice if the rewards were a little bit higher on it, and also understand that the general playstyle of this machine is not the same as your general, you know, Italian fighter. All of these have similar characteristics. When you play the C202, it plays exactly like the G56. You know, the only real difference between them in playstyle is the amount of power that you have at your disposal. The IAR-81C, because it doesn't have as good of a rate of climb, you have to wait for it to get up to altitude before you can really pounce on enemies, where a lot of these are good at low, good at mid, and good at high altitude. The IAR-81 is, as you know how I talked about the F4U-1A, where it's more of a cleanup aircraft, where, you know, you kind of have to wait for your enemies to dive on your allies, and then you go in and clean up. Well, the IAR is that one, but for the, you know, the Italians. It's got great high-speed control. It's rugged. Its rudder struggles a little bit. It has two MG151s at 2.7, which is insane, and it has two 792s to back it up. So you've easily got the firepower to destroy anything that you want. And since maybe about a year ago, maybe a bit less, they've actually added some more bomb loads to this machine. So they've made it more useful in ground realistic. And since the main fighter line for the Italians is struggling when it comes to usefulnesses as a genuine, like, all-rounder vehicle. Instead, what you have is just kind of a bunch of pure fighters. That's why they added stuff like the Ju-87s when the ground vehicles came out, and also the RE line, because all of these, or at least the majority of them, can carry bombs in some way. So therefore, it's nice that, you know, even though this line is not as good in ground realistic, if you want to play that strike fighter role, you do have options like the IR-81C, which have a bunch of different options for you to use in order to play that role. So yeah, it's a multi-role aircraft. It's overall incredibly good, but it doesn't necessarily fit the normal Italian playstyle. So if you're using this to grind out, you know, the Italian tree from rank 3 to 1, and then you get to rank 3 or rank 4 and start playing the vehicles and go, oh, nothing's like this thing that I've been using, yeah, you'd be right. And it may give you a false impression, and also understand that you're going to have to play off your teammates a lot. The Mk.II is a vehicle that a lot of people have heavily criticized because it's not like the other Japanese fighters. But for me, a machine like this complements the other fighters, where the other fighters are good at climbing, they're good at turning, and they're good at holding energy. The Mk.IV is much more of a boom and zoom high-altitude fighter, so it can deal with the stuff that your other allies aren't able to deal with, which is why I like this machine. And the IAR is kind of a similar thing at a much lower BR, and at a much lower BR you can get away with a lot more stuff, so therefore it's not as crucial, but it's good training for the high tiers. So I like this aircraft a lot. I've enjoyed flying it, but understand it won't give you the same playstyle as everything else. The Zut-37. So the Zut-37 is the weakest out of the bunch, and the reason is because it's awful. The Zut-37 was put into the game an incredibly long time ago. It's been available a few times for different events, and it's touted as an AA. It's not. It's a monstrosity on tracks. This machine is not good as an AA. The main thing, because its turret rotation, as you can see, 6.3 degrees per second, and also the fact that it gets a very short clip. So if I take it into test drive, I'll show you the two main issues that this machine has as an AA, which is what it's supposed to be, remember. So there's a plane up there. Let's try and track it. So we can just about hold it, but look how slow it is. You're getting out you're getting out-turned by a VF-110. So what you have to do is you have to turn the whole vehicle. That shakes everything because the suspension is awful, and you've got to try your best to try and keep your gun on target. Now, it does have a good high fire rate, but you only fire 5 shots at once. So what happens is you have a short burst of, absolute annihilation, and then you've got a long time where you're kind of waiting to reload and then move back and everything. Since it's also open-topped and there's only 2 crew, you can take this out really easily from an aircraft. So just from an SPAA point of view, it is absolutely abysmal. The two key factors are, it's got a short clip, and also its turret rotation is awful. These are two things that good SPAA just need at any tier, really. The thing about it, though, is that it has quite good ammunition, and you have the default APT Heavy T, then you got the Heavy T, and then the APT. The APT can pen up to 70mm, and against the majority of machines that you're going to be fighting at 2.7, that's easy enough to go through them. So if you want to use this thing as a pseudo tank destroyer, of course, go ahead and give it a go. But there are better machines at, or around 2.7. The 2.7 lineup isn't actually that strong when we look at it. Well, actually, no, it is kind of strong. But it could be better. Like the 3.3 lineup or the 3.7 lineup for the Soviets, in my opinion, is stronger. But at 2.7, you can run the T-28E, the up-armored T-28. That's kind of fun. The T-50 is a monstrosity. Like, it's really good in the game. And you don't really want to up-tier this thing because of the fact that if its only value is its armor penetration, the higher you go, the more armor you're going to encounter. And since you can't use it as an AA, just bring along this machine instead, the Gaz-MM 72K. And you actually nearly pen as much in the Gaz-MM 72K as you do in the Zut, which is kind of crazy. This is definitely the weakest machine out of all of them that has added this update. From a rarity point of view, I wouldn't even say it's that rare because it's been given away so many times. So in order of what I would say are, good machines or fun to use, it's IR81C, F4U1A, T34 747, even though it's got the lineup issues, Avenger, then T14, then Zut. So yeah, those are my recommendations when it comes to this month's Warbond shop. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Cyborg James, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Martinez, Matati, Moxie, Nito, Nick Graham, Alobralo, Sebastian Corona, Super Cacti, and Elove Goat and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.